Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new video on my channel. This is looking into 20 games that I'm going to add first to the Spectrum. And this is similar to what I did with the Amiga Mini when it came out. Obviously, we know what the 48 games are that are included now with this machine, which we're all excited about for November. I'm going to go through them, obviously. In case you just don't know, I'll flash you up a picture that I've made of all the 48 games and their cover art. And then we'll just be talking about the games that I'm planning to add first. The first 20 that I'm going to put on the system. And it's quite funny actually, because either I've got great taste or they've got great taste or whatever it is, but I had to pretty much readjust this list because I had it all ready to go before they announced the 48 games. I did it just for a bit of a giggle. I did a list of 30 just to see what I would put on the Spectrum, and that list got kind of ruined for the fact that they put so many games that were on that list on. I think I had to take 11 off or 12 or something, so then I had to obviously find a couple more, and then I decided to trim it down to 20 because I thought 30 would be a long video. I didn't want to make one too long. So anyway, it took a bit of adjustment, my list, but basically it's all sorted now. And first of all, we're going to flash up the picture there, the 48 games that are included on the Spectrum, and here they are. So that's the 48 games that are included with the Spectrum. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about the 20 that I'm going to add with some fancy graphics, etc., and a little look at the gameplay, and then I will flash up a picture similar to the one I've just showed you of my 20, and we'll just go over that a little bit. And then obviously, as ever, I'll be asking you in the comments to name yours. I'll probably be doing multiple of these videos, so there will be another 20 to add and another 20 potentially. So none of this list will be set in stone, and maybe you'll be able to remind me of a few games that I've forgotten, for the next video. So without further ado, let's talk about the first game that I'm going to add. Okay, the first game I'm going to be adding is Match Point by Scion. It was released in 1984 for the measly price of £7.95, rated 8 out of 10 in CMVG magazine and 89% in Crash magazine. You can play 1 or 2 players. 1 player is obviously against the computer, as you would expect. Keyboard or joystick controlled. You play 1, 3 or 5 sets. And yeah, it's a real step up from tennis games that we got previously to this. Things like Pong and stuff like that was what we had back then. Very nice graphics, good animation, good looking. I mean, the tennis player's a stick man basically, but you can really tell you're playing a game of tennis. It's not like you'd think, oh, a stick man might not portray tennis very well, but it does. It looks really good. It plays a great game of tennis. And it can be a little bit slow, I guess. It's not top speed. Not like the modern games like virtual tennis and stuff like that. But for its time, it was really good. The speed and direction of the shots are controlled by the angle and the moment you make contact with the ball. So it's like you can position yourself at the right place, swing late if you want to hit it in a certain direction. It's far easier to play the game rather than to listen to the description of how you control the shots. But it's very intuitive the way you hit the ball. So you can manipulate where you want the ball to go pretty well. Even though, technically there is no way to aim the shot. That's how you do it. You do it all through contact. Where you hit the ball, it determines where the shot goes. Again, it's something that really you need to play to experience, really. The way I'm describing it might not make a lot of sense, but it really does make sense when you actually play the game, trust me. And yeah, it's great fun. Definitely worth adding this game if you've got any interest in tennis. And if you're just looking for a good sports game, this is definitely one to add to your Spectrum. Okay, next we have a game called Myth, A History in the Making, released in 1989 for £9.95. This was from System 3, the creators of The Last Ninja, and it scored 95% in Your Sinclair and 96% in Crash magazine. So as you can see, this was very highly rated. It's best described as an action-adventure platformer. So there you go, get your head around that one. It's a whole heap of fun, it really is, it's great. You get a variety of weapons and objects to use to complete your quest. The quest storyline is a little bit goofy, I suppose, really. You're like a 20th century kid who gets transported back in time to take on a variety of gods, evil mythological beasties, and of course save the world, which is a kind of a prerequisite for games like this, isn't it? It looks amazing. It's just as importantly as that, it plays absolutely beautifully. You jump around, you get to use all your weapons and stuff. You can kind of pick what item you need to use at what time and stuff like that, what particular weapon might work with which particular enemy. So it's got a little bit of tactics about it, a little bit of platformers. I think there's 5 levels in total. I could be wrong on that, might only be 4. I'm trying to remember back in the recesses of my mind. but you'll know if you've played this game before. It is a bit of a classic and definitely worth adding without a shadow of a doubt. I reckon there'll be a lot of people that would agree with this one. Definitely the magazines would, 95 and 96%. I believe that's the top 2 scores on this list of all the games that are on here. So what can I say? If you've never played it before, give it a try, add it to your Spectrum, because I don't think you'll regret it. Okay, the next game needs no real introduction. It's Set Willie, the sequel to Manic Miner, of course, an absolute classic. Released in 1984 for £5.95. Can you believe that? Although, to be fair, that would have been a hell of a lot of money for me back in the day, because I only got like 50p pocket money. It would have taken me a long time to save up for that game though. It was ranked 5 in the 1984 Sinclair User Top 50 Spectrum Software Classics. That's a bit of a mouthful. Rated 8.5 out of 10 in computer and video games and 95% in Crash. Don't know, what more can you say? Bit of a lower score from CMVG there, to be honest, but there you go. This game is set in Miner Willie's huge mansion. And unlike Manic Miner, you can tackle rooms as you see fit, so you don't have to complete the room first and collect all the stuff and get to the exit like you used to in Manic Miner. You can go around and just tackle them all as you like. So that kind of makes it sort of a platforming adventure game, really, I guess. Willie just wants to go to bed, but his maid Maria insists he tides up first, so he sets off to collect everything in the mansion to make her happy so he can go to bed. That's the premise of the game, basically. Now, I found out a fun fact while I was doing the research on this. There was a competition included in the original game manual. I'm going to read you word for word what it says here. Why not join the Jet Set and share in Willie's good fortune? Software Projects are offering a prize to the first person to write or telephone our offices in Liverpool with the answer to this question. How many glasses must Willie collect before Maria lets him go to bed? In exchange for this info, we will present the winner with 6 champagne glasses and a case of Dom Perignon champagne. Wow, lovely. In addition to this, a Jet Ranger helicopter will pick you up for a flight above your town when you will get the chance to meet Matthew Smith, the author of Set Willie and the other #1 selling Spectrum game from Software Projects, Manic Miner. Well, that's a crazy prize, isn't it? Unfortunately, there was a problem with that, because with the bugs that are included in the game, it was impossible to complete the game and find the answer. So a couple of little cheeky scamps, Ross Holman and Cameron Else, decided to hack the code, and they found out that obviously after they hacked the code that it was impossible to complete the game. So they produced some fixes and completed the game, phoned Software Projects with the answer to win the competition. And apparently the fixes that they produced became official Set Willie fixes and were released by Software Projects. So I guess they were double winners, really. I don't know if they negotiated any deal there to get any share of the profits or whatever, but it's a fun story, that, isn't it? Not so fun, I guess, if you were trying desperately to complete the game and were unaware that it was bugged. Although I guess you probably found that out. But me personally, I never got far enough into the game to get anywhere near finishing it like that. And I think at 10 years old, I probably wouldn't have needed champagne and champagne glasses. Although it would have been nice to get it from my mum. But I would have probably loved the helicopter ride, though. Although I am scared of heights, so maybe not. Anyway, getting back to the matter at hand, we all know about Set Willie, I'm pretty sure. Amazing platforming fun. I probably prefer it to Manic Miner in the sense that you're not limited, so if you get stuck on a level in Manic Miner, basically that's the game for you, isn't it? Whereas Set Willie, if you're in a room that's a bit difficult, as long as you can move to the next room, you can move in and take your time and do that room. So yeah, I think personally I preferred it to Manic Miner, but Manic Miner is still an absolute classic, so it's very close between the two. And this, it's an absolute no-brainer. I know a lot of people were disappointed that this game wasn't actually included on the system, but you get the chance to add it yourself, and I would strongly recommend that you do. Okay, on to the next one, Formula 1 by CRL, released in 1985 for £7.95. Sinclair User gave it 5 out of 5. CMVG only gave this 6.5 out of 10. But for me, this is an essential game. I've already done a video on my channel about my love of this game and playing through it for half an hour. It's on my Nostalgia half-hour series. It's a great game, great Grand Prix game. It's a fun single-player game, but it's even better when you play multiplayer. It's absolutely fantastic. And this is the way me and my friends used to play it. There was like 4 of us playing, crowded around little tiny ZX Spectrum back in the day. You pick your team, you can change the driver names. You've got names like Nigel Mansell and Derek Walker, and if you're familiar with the drivers of that era, obviously Senna and Prost and that. Yeah, drivers from the 80s, obviously. You hire your drivers, you buy your car parts, you work on your car so you can improve like the engine, the chassis, the pit crew. And then as long as your car is good enough to race, you'll be entered into the race. and then you can bet on each individual race, you pick your tyres, and then basically you sit back and watch the race. You can request a pit stop, but you don't really do anything unless your car gets called into the pits or unless you request the stop. Otherwise you're just watching the race. You'll know which team's winning because the border around the outside will reflect the colour of the winning, like the driver that's in the lead, and obviously you'll see the drivers whizzing past as well. There's nothing more frustrating than when your car unexpectedly gets called into the pits and you just see it poodling along the side. Actually, there is one more thing that's frustrating. It's when you don't see your car at all and then you realise it's crashed, and you'll get a little text commentary down the bottom sometimes to tell you what's happened, like if your car has crashed, or if you've got to change your tyres, or your engine's blown or whatever, and there's all sorts of little messages that pop up. And then you manually do your pit stops, so whatever you need doing, if it's just to change tyres, you just run around and change all the tyres. Sometimes you might have to work on the engine and the chassis and stuff like that, so you'll have to do that too. Every time you do it, the game pauses, which is good. So if you are playing multiplayer, you can kind of switch positions or pass if you're playing on the joystick. I can't remember if you can play on the joystick on this one or not. We used to play it on the keyboard, so but whatever, you switch over, and that person does their own pit stop. There's the championship points at the end of the thing, and also you get paid money for prize money, which you can then use to improve your car. So it's a great little management game. If you're into Formula One, it's a lot of fun, and like I said, it's a really good game to play with more than one person. It's fun. It's fairly simple, I guess, but just try it. If you've never tried it before, what have you got to lose? Putting it on your Spectrum. It really is a lot of fun. I can heartily recommend this one. This was always one of my favourite memories growing up, was playing Formula One. So add it if you want to. The next game is Trackit Manager, which is a football management game, as you can probably imagine. Released in 1988 for £9.95. You can see the price of the game's going up a little bit there as the years go by. It scored 9 out of 10 in CMVG and 93% in Sinclair user. Now, I appreciate that football management games are not going to be for everybody, so there's probably going to be quite a vast amount of people, if you're not interested in football or you find this sort of thing a bit boring, that aren't going to be that interested in this game. If you do like a football management game though, this is a very good one. It's a text football management game, so don't be expecting to see little men running around the field like you get with Football Manager and stuff like that. It's all done with text commentary. A little bit like the old Championship Manager games, where they were all text commentary, weren't they? So, I wouldn't say it's as good as that, obviously, but, for its time, definitely a good one. Basically, you pick a nation. I think there's 50 odd nations to pick from. You guide them through the Nations Cup, which is the European Championships basically, and the World Cup. And you pick your squad from a huge database of real players. Apparently the guy who made this game, or one of the team at least, went to FIFA and got proper stats for every single player, like for all the nations, which is absolutely crazy that that's included in this game, considering it's on a ZX Spectrum. That's mental. And yeah, you do your commentary style match, and obviously you're trying to guide your team to win one of the tournaments. I can't remember actually if you get sacked at the end of it if you don't win. I really can't remember that, to be honest with you. I may not have got that far. I don't know. I remember playing a lot of this back in the day, but I don't have like strong memories of it like I do with some of the games I played, like the previous one, Formula One. This was more like a solo game, so it was kind of like, I think sometimes the multiplayer games, they stick in your memory a bit more because you've got a crowd of people around, you're having such a laugh, aren't you? This is a little bit more serious, but maybe you can let me know in the comments on that one. It had excellent depth, especially for an early football management game, and I would say it was probably the best of its time. Definitely worth going on if you're into football management games. Football Manager 2 is really good. That's one that's included as well. Probably if I had to pick out the two, if Football Manager 2 hadn't been on the system, I may have added that here instead, because I did like Football Manager 2. But this is a really good game, and as we've got Football Manager 2 already included, we can add this as well. Okay, on to the next game, which is Feud, which was released in 1987 for the small sum of money of £1.99. Now that is a game I could have saved up for with my pocket money. It scored 91% in Crash and 8.5 out of 10 on CMVG. It's the first game that was released on the Bulldog software label, which I believe was an offshoot of Mastertronic. Mastertronic games were always cheap anyway, but they were going for an even cheaper range of games here. You wouldn't know this was cheap because it looks beautiful and it plays very well as well. It's a good fun game. It's about two brothers who are also wizards, but they don't get on to the point where they're feuding, hence the title. And they do have a big ding dong, and you have to go around and collect herbs and roots to make spells that can damage your brother. So basically you can hit him with fireballs, lightning bolts, I think, stuff like that. You've got to experiment. I think there's about 12 spells in the game from what I can remember. And I think every single one of them just needs 2 ingredients. And then you make the spells, and when you see your brother, which I think he tends to stalk you quite a lot, so you will see him a lot on the map. And I think the compass will point in the direction of him, so you'll know where he is most of the time. And so as soon as you've made your spell, you can go and try and damage him. And also you have villagers in the game as well, which you can turn into zombies to also do your bidding. It's a fun little game. I mean, obviously it's $1.99, so you're not expecting an epic here, but it's fun. As you can see by the reviews, you know, it's not just me saying that. And it's well worth a play. I can't actually remember, to be honest, if it was 2 players, one against the other. I don't think it was. I think it was a single player game, this one. But again, correct me if I'm wrong on that one. I don't know. I'm going on memory here. I know me and my brother used to have a lot of fun playing this game. I don't believe we played it against each other, but I could be wrong. Me and my brother, we didn't tend to play games against each other a lot. Sports games, maybe like Formula 1 and stuff like that, we would, and golf games and that sort of thing. But if we had the chance, we'd do like a Target Renegade style, and you know, we'd be on the same team, and that was what we preferred to do. Or if not, we'd play single player and sort of like take it in turns. So a lot of the time we weren't playing 2 players against each other, because you know, we didn't want to have that competitive element all the time. You know, could get nasty otherwise. You know. So, but anyway, check Feud out if you've never played it before. It's very fun and definitely worthy of a place on here. Okay, we move on to the next game, which is RoboCop, released in 1988 by Ocean. Cost $8.95 or $14.95 on disc. Usually with Ocean movie tie-ins, you never really held out a lot of hope, did you? Do you know what I mean? It's like they did so many dodgy ones. This is one of the good ones. I did a comparison video, I say recently, it's probably a couple of years ago now, and I did vote the ZX Spectrum as the best version. I think I did it on Spectrum, Amstrad, Commodore 64 and Amiga. As far as I can remember, they were the 4 I did. I might, if I remember, try and leave a link in the description. If not, you can find it on here somewhere, I'm sure. But this one was not bad at all. Good graphics, good character animation. Probably describe it as a side-scrolling, shooting, jumping kind of game for the most part. There are a couple of different sections, but I'm not going to talk about them on here because I don't want to go into spoiler territory. But if you've played the game, I'm sure you know. There might even be a clip of it in the video here, so I don't even know what I'm talking about with spoilers if that comes up. We'll see. I'm recording the audio before I record the video, you see, so I don't know what I'm going to include in the video, which is quite funny. But anyway, anyone who's probably interested in the movie has played the game, I would imagine. And if you obviously owned a Spectrum back then, I'm sure you played it on the Spectrum. Definitely a good version of this, and yeah, it's very good. So if you do love RoboCop, you can definitely not go wrong by putting this on your Spectrum. This is a game that could possibly have been included, but I guess probably for licensing purposes, maybe not. But I don't think they didn't include it because they thought it was rubbish, because obviously it is a pretty good game. And I think if you've played it before, you'll agree with me, so add it to your Spectrum. Okay, moving on, we have Back to School, released in 1985. It's £6.95. This one scored 93% in Crash and 9 out of 10 in Your Sinclair. And of course, it's the sequel to the popular game School Days, which I absolutely loved as well. I could never get far in these games because there was always so much to do, but I just loved wandering around the school and stuff and causing mayhem, which is pretty much what you do in this game too. Except you get 2 schools to go around in this one, because you actually get access to a girls' school as well. All sorts of chaos can ensue when you do go there. Like, you can release mice, I believe, and stuff like that in there. It's funny. Again, I won't spoil if you've never played it before, but yeah, you can cause a lot of chaos in either school, really, which I think is the point of Back to School and School Days, isn't it? Again, you control Eric, who's the naughty kid, or he can be as naughty as you want him to be, I suppose. Sequel's bigger. I reckon it's better than School Days. Again, like I don't think I need to go into too much detail. I'm sure most people who have owned a ZX Spectrum before have played School Days. If not, obviously that's included with the Spectrum, so maybe check that one out first. And then if you love it as much as I do, I'm sure you'll want to add Back to School to yours as well. You get the same teachers coming back in this game, and obviously you play the same character too, and yeah, it's just a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun when I was a kid, because I think probably because I was such a quiet kid when I was at school that it was almost nice to play the rebellious kid in a video game. You know, maybe that's the reason why it resonated with me so much, you know. Maybe, I don't know. It was like a kind of way to escape from the pretty much goody two-shoes that I used to be at school. I used to be too scared to rebel, you know, in real life. So yeah, do it in a video game, why not? And obviously, yeah, that brings back a lot of memories for me, so it was a no-brainer to put this on the Spectrum. Okay, time for another sports game, and this is Daley Thompson's Decathlon, released in 1984 for £6.90, and it scored 82% in Crash magazine and 8 out of 10 in Sinclair user. It was made to cash in on the success of Track and Field in the arcades, which was massively popular at the time, and probably a reason why I fell in love with the game, because I was absolutely mad about Track and Field in the arcades. I used to play it all the time. Every time we went on holiday, that I would go towards the Track and Field machine and just pretty much be there all day. I absolutely obsessed about that game. So obviously Daley Thompson's Decathlon was the closest thing we had on a home computer back then. You're playing all 10 events of the Decathlon, which if anyone doesn't know is 100 meters, long jump, shot put, high jump, 400 meters, 110 meters hurdles, discus, pole vault, javelin, and then 1500 meters. And providing you met the qualifying conditions for each event, you'd qualify for the next one. Known by nickname the Joystick Killer, due to the amount of joysticks that eventually broke because of the constant waggling to try and speed up Daley Thompson in the events. We went through a lot of joysticks playing this. We went through more playing Decathlon on the Commodore 64, to be honest, but I think we played that more, so that's probably the reason why you used to absolutely die playing that game, because doing the 1500 meters you'd be waggling the joystick for about 10 minutes straight. It was utterly exhausting. I can't remember being as exhausted playing this game, but yeah, certainly still went through some joysticks. So, you know, if you value your joystick and you know you want to make sure you don't break them or anything, then maybe think twice about adding this one to your Spectrum. To be fair, you can play it on the keys as well, but again, you don't want to break your keys, do you? So, you know, I don't want to be responsible for any of that. I'll be adding it for the pure nostalgia personally. I don't know how much I'll play of it for that reason alone, the whole breaking of the joystick and stuff. I will be a bit skeptical about whether that's going to happen. So, but I'll be adding it purely for that nostalgia and just to see it going and, you know, hear the sounds and stuff like that will be great for me. But maybe you need to think twice, you know. And I said, don't blame me. This is like, you know, I am accepting no responsibility if you add it to yours and break your joysticks. So please beware. Okay, next we have Death Chase, or 3D Death Chase, however you say it. I mean, it seems to me that even the magazines couldn't agree whether this was Death Chase or 3D Death Chase. But anyway, if you've played it, you know what game it is. Released in 1983 for £6.95. It scored 92% in Crash magazine. Astonishingly, this game is only 16k when you see it. Yeah, I guess it's a very simple premise really, but it is a thrilling little game to play. It particularly was back then, at least. You're on patrol. I'm assuming you're a cop. It's never really explained, but you're chasing down a couple of bikers, and basically you can shoot them and you have to avoid the trees. You go at breakneck speed going through these trees. Once you've managed to shoot them, the two bikers you're chasing, your patrol switches to a night patrol. And again, you'll be chasing a couple of bikers through the trees. Eventually, you'll have tanks as well and helicopters if you survive that long. It's a great, fast-paced little game. I used to be, in some ways, a little bit too scared to play it back then when I was a kid. I mean, you think about it, playing it in, well, I played it in 85. That's when I got my Spectrum. Yeah, so I was 11 years old then, and it was too fast for me back then, to be honest. I used to panic. I used to not like driving into the trees and all sorts. But a couple of years later, it was when I got a bit older that I kind of got into the game a little bit. It's fairly simple, I will admit that. But when it came out in 1983, there wasn't anything like it, you know. And it's a very big nostalgia trip for me, this game. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it, to be honest. It may not be a game you'll keep going back to necessarily, but definitely I would consider this one of the ZX Spectrum's early classics. And the graphics are good and the action is very fast paced, like I said. So yeah, if you've never played it before, I would definitely give this a check out because it really is good. Okay, I only have to say the word Jetpack and you instantly think of ZX Spectrum. This is definitely one of the classic early games. Released in 1983 for just £5.50. Scored 9 out of 10 in CMVG, and it's another one of those games that on paper has a fairly simple concept. You have to assemble parts of your rocket, refuel it, and then once you do, you fly off and complete the level. Easy, right? Well, in theory it is, I guess, but aliens, meteorites, all sorts of objects, a little bit of platforming as well. It all comes into play in this game, and it's a bit of a classic. It really is. Definitely one of the first games I remember playing on the ZX Spectrum. Not the first, but definitely one of them. I think the first game I ever played was Hungry Horace, and then it was probably Daily Thompsons Decathlon, then Jetpack. So definitely a classic game for myself. You defy gravity with your trusty jetpack, and you obviously have a gun as well, which you can shoot things with, and you just basically flying around trying to pick up these ship parts and stacking them on top of the base of the ship, which you've got on the ground already. And once you've built that ship, then you have to collect, I think it's 6 fuel components to start your rocket. It's, like I said, it sounds very simple, but it becomes very addictive. And obviously, you know, it gets a little bit harder as it goes along and everything, as most of these games tend to do. I'm pretty sure if you know anything about ZX Spectrum gaming history, you will know about Jetpack. This is one of the games I was very surprised, actually, that wasn't included with the system. I don't know if they had a problem getting, I think this was made by Ultimate, and I don't know if they had problems getting their games, because I don't think they've got any of them, or no, they might have 1 or 2. But none of the major sort of games that were considered classics are on here from this company. So it could be a licensing thing, I don't know. But anyway, Jetpack, definitely add it to your Spectrum. So the next game I'll be adding is Nighttime, released in 1986 for £2.99. It scored 94% in Crash Magazine and 9.5 out of 10 in CMVG. This is the 3rd game in the Magic Knight series. We have Spellbound included on the Spectrum. That is the 2nd game in the Magic Knight series. This was my favourite out of all of them, so that's why I'm adding this on. And also, obviously, Spellbound was really good too, so it's good to have the sequel for that on the system as well. This was written specifically for the 128K Spectrum. I believe it was one of the first games ever to be written for that, although there was a shorter version made for 48K, but it had quite a bit of it cut out. This would be probably best described as a graphic adventure game, and you play as Magic Knight. You find yourself on a starship USS Pisces, and once you get the crew to recognise who you are, you have to explore the universe to find a time machine so you can return back to your own time. That's the premise of the game right there. It's a fun game, good sense of humour, good graphics, and obviously, you know, for the time, £2.99, it was great value for money. And it didn't feel like a budget game either back then, even though it was, obviously. It was a great time to be alive, quite honestly. These games coming out and, you know, very affordable for kids with pocket money and stuff. I mean, you certainly wouldn't get that nowadays. Although, to be fair, I don't know. Kids could be on like 50 quid pocket money. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, they wouldn't be if they were my kids, but you know what I mean? It's like, I see kids walking around with iPhones and all sorts nowadays. So I guess the mind boggles really as somebody who hasn't got their own kids. Back then, this was what we were spending our pocket money on, and it was a great value game. And I'm sure anybody who's played any of the Magic Knight games know just how fun they could be. So yeah, I definitely would recommend this game if you've never played it before, or obviously if you're a fan of the game, I'm sure you're going to be adding it anyway. Big nostalgia trip for me this, and definitely deserves a place on that first 20 games. Okay, moving on, next is World Class Leaderboard, released in 1987 by US Gold for £8.99. This scored 9 out of 10 in Your Sinclair, and of course it's the follow-up to the excellent golf game Leaderboard. Now I must confess, I never played the original Leaderboard on the ZX Spectrum. I had it on the Commodore 64, and that's what I played it on. The majority of my gameplay of World Class Leaderboard was also done on the Commodore 64. However, I did also play this a little bit, and obviously when you're looking at it, obviously I know I played World Class Leaderboard more on the Commodore 64. That's where my memories are. But when we're looking at games to add here, I kind of try to put a little bit of everything in. I want a football management game, you know, I want a football action game, I want a cricket game, I want a golf game. They were my interests back then, do you know what I mean? And I want a tennis game, you know, so I was trying to think what the best golf game would be to include, and we had a few stinkers on the ZX Spectrum. We really did. So World Class Leaderboard was definitely one of the better games. I checked it out, played it on the Spectrum, and thought it was a really good version. So I thought why not? This is different to the original Leaderboard in the sense that, you know, this is more realistic. You don't play over loads of water on loads of islands. In fact, you get to play real golf courses like St Andrews. There is another one that they've done on here called the Gauntlet, which is made up, but I believe all the other courses are real courses. And yeah, it's probably the best recreation of golf that you're going to find on the ZX Spectrum. It certainly was my favourite golf game on the Commodore 64 as well. And yeah, like I said, there were a lot of golf games on the ZX Spectrum, but a lot of not so good ones, you know. I remember when we were kids, we were constantly looking for a decent golf game. My dad was massively into golf. We had it on television, we had Commodore 64, and we had decent golf games for both of them. So trying to find one for the ZX Spectrum was always a bit of a mission. And to me, World Class Leaderboard is definitely the best golf game you're going to find on the ZX Spectrum, if you're into that sort of thing. Okay, next, from the same people that bought us School Days and Back to School comes Contact Sam Cruz, released in 1986 for £6.95. This scored 93% in Crash and just 7.5 out of 10 in CMVG, which is a bit of a low score as far as I'm concerned. But you're playing a sort of film noir style detective story where you play Private Eye Sam Cruz. Sam's on a case, and to put it in very basic terms, you've got to put the clues together and try and solve it before you either lose your life or your money. That's basically the premise on this game. A lot of fun, a lot of humour. You can wear disguises, which is like a crazy concept. You've got to avoid the cops, you've got to avoid the mafia, you've got to avoid snipers. It's like, there's a lot going on in this game. I used to find it quite complicated as a kid, but it's a game I've got more into, you know, as I played it as a little bit older, like a teenager and a younger adult. Haven't played it for a long time, to be fair, but I think there's a lot of memories attached to this game for me. I've got my own personal reasons. You know, we were on holiday when we got the game, so that was a good time. I always remember buying it in Great Yarmouth when I was a kid with my brother. So we used to buy our games together. We used to pool our money together, you know, and save up for games and stuff. So yeah, this was a bit of a treat. I remember buying it on holiday though, and the only bad thing about that was, you know, we had to take it back to our caravan, and then we were there for like 2 weeks. So it's like, you know, it's like when you get a new game and you just, like, if you're in the back of a car or you're on a train or something, all you want to do is get home and play your new game, don't you? Keep looking at the back of the box and everything. And imagine being on a 2-week holiday and having a game. Like, you know, it's like, I just want to play my game, but you want to enjoy your holiday as well. So yeah, there's a bit of a memory attached to that for me. But great game, good fun. Again, it's like with School Days, like Back to School, there's more to it going on, really. You know, it's a fun game to play, it's very playable, but there's more to it. It's a bit complex as well. So yeah, definitely a good game. Let me know in the comments if you played this one, because this is one of my favourites. I do absolutely love this game. Okay, going on the Spectrum next is Batman, released in 1986 by Ocean for £7.95, scored 8.5 out of 10 in Sinclair User and 93% in Crash. This was written by John Rittman and Bernie Drummond, the geniuses behind Head Over Heels, and it's a similar style game, isometric, and puzzle solving and jumping on blocks, avoiding weird objects and things like that come at you. Yes, and obviously you play as Batman, which, I mean, you can't go wrong, can you? There are a couple of Batman games on the ZX Spectrum. You know, you had Batman the movie. I think you had Batman the Caped Crusader was another one. This one just called Batman by Ocean, so just in case you get confused. Although I think all of those games were pretty good, to be fair, but this was my favourite of the bunch. I did a video a while back on this channel as well. The premise of the game was Robin was abducted while he was servicing the Batmobile, and 7 vital parts of the Batmobile are strewn all over the Batcave. So you have to go and find them all and put the Batmobile back together so you can go off and save Robin. You also have 4 Bat devices that you need to recover 2 that will give you extra powers, you know, abilities, so you can get through the levels and complete your task. And that is basically the premise. I think we'll all agree that, you know, if we've played Head Over Heels, that, I mean, to me Head Over Heels was better than Batman, but on the same wavelength. You know, you do, there's not a lot of difference between the two games in terms of, you know, the feel of them, you know, and also the look, I guess. There are obvious differences, but Batman was just a very cool game, and Batman came first, so obviously it paved the way for Head Over Heels, really. Head Over Heels is on this system already, so that would have been added on my list. That would have been right up there for sure. In fact, it was on, like I said, the original list that I did and had to heavily edit because all these classic games were included anyway. But I think if you've played Batman, you'll know how good it is, and yeah, it's brilliant. So it's a no-brainer to put this on for me. You know, I'm not telling you guys what to do, but you know, if you're looking for hints, tips, tricks, reminders of games you may have forgotten, hopefully this jogs your memory. Although I'm sure you wouldn't forget a classic like Batman. Okay, the next game I'm adding is Gremlins: The Adventure, released in 1985 for £9.95. Only scored 7.5 out of 10 in Crash, but 9 out of 10 in CVG. Gremlins is a text-controlled adventure, so basically you'll give text commands like, you know, walk east or go east, whatever, pick up something, whatever, you know, whatever. You've played these before. Similar style to The Hobbit, and you also get a lovely graphical picture for most areas that you go into. I think it's for every area actually, if memory serves. So the game follows very closely the plot of the movie. It will follow as closely as you make it, I guess. You know, if you give the game wacky commands, then it's not going to be anything like the movie, is it? But yeah, generally speaking, you are supposed to follow the story of the movie. And you play as Billy Peltzer, who teams up with Mogwai Gizmo to stop the town of Kingston Falls from being overrun by hordes of gremlins. The graphics are really nice, colourful, detailed. It's a great game. It really is a lot of fun, and especially if you're a fan of Gremlins, which I massively was growing up. It was my favourite movie for a long time. I got the sticker album, I got the movie books that you used to be able to get back in them days. I actually was, I think, the first sticker album I ever finished. I may have finished my ET one as well, but I definitely finished. I've still got my Gremlin sticker album somewhere in this house. It's here somewhere. Yeah, so I absolutely adored Gremlins growing up, and it brings back a lot of memories. I played this on my channel as well, so that's how much I like the game. So for me, a no-brainer to add. It's quite nice having some different games, you know, and we've got The Hobbit already included, obviously, but not many adventure games, so I felt like this was a good game to add. And I'm sure if you've ever played it, you'll probably, and you liked Gremlins, of course, I'm sure you probably liked it too. So the next game I'm adding is International Cricket, released in 1986. This was actually given away free at the time on a cover tape from your Sinclair. I'm sure it was up for sale at some point, but this was a freebie that I got personally. It was quite a tale, really. My brother and I, we loved cricket games, but it seemed to be that no matter what system it was. I mean, Graham Gooch's cricket was alright on the Commodore 64, but you know, you didn't do a lot in it. Do you know what I mean? It was never really a great cricket game, and it was amazing. We would have paid a lot of money for a good cricket game, to be perfectly honest with you. And then all of a sudden they gave this one away on the front of your Sinclair, and we just thought, oh, we'll give it a go, and it turned out to be probably the best cricket game we ever played on, certainly on the ZX Spectrum at least. It controls really well. There's not loads to it, I suppose. You can fully control the fielders. Basically, if a shot's hit, it will have height and strength. A lot of the time, if you get underneath the ball before it hits the ground, you can catch it. Obviously, you stop it, it automatically throws at the wickets. So obviously, if the batsmen are out of their crease, it will throw the ball to the stumps and commit a run out, sort of thing. And it's just a really good cricket game. I realise that cricket games are not going to be massively popular with lots of people, but I suppose it did get a bit of a showing in the US with the World Cup this summer, the T20 World Cup. So maybe it's a little bit more well known outside of the UK now. And obviously, there's a lot of nations that play, obviously, like India and Pakistan and, you know, Holland, New Zealand, Australia. I could go on. You know, I do appreciate that it's not just an English game, but there's lots of times places throughout the world where it's not massively big, obviously, but in the UK it is, always has been, and this is a very, very good cricket game. And like I said, I like to cover all my bases with the sports I like, so to me, a no-brainer to put this on my Spectrum. Next up is a game called The Trapdoor, released in 1986 for £7.95. This scored 88% in Crash and 8 out of 10 in CMVG. It's based on the animated show of the same name. The Trapdoor puts you in charge of Burke, a large blue dollop of a creature, who I'm not quite sure what he's supposed to be honest with you, who lives to serve his master, the Thing Upstairs, with the help of his friends Boney, a disembodied human skull, and Drut, a spider-like creature. You have to complete a number of tasks to keep the very grumpy Thing Upstairs a happy chappy. It's a pretty simple, entertaining game. You get orders from the said Thing Upstairs, sort of one at a time, and you have to go and work out how to fulfill those orders. There's little areas you can go to in the game, different areas from obviously the main screen, and you try and complete the tasks to keep the grumpy son of a gun happy. Basically, that's it. It's not loads to it, I guess, but it's fun. It's got a bit of a sense of humour about it. The graphics are great. You get big, colourful looking character graphics and animations. And yeah, if you've ever watched it's not a cartoon, it's animated. I guess it's not quite claymation, but it's that kind of deal. You know, everything looks plasticine-y. It used to be a great show. I think there was about 40 episodes put out on TV in the UK back in the 80s. They weren't like massively long episodes, maybe about 3 or 4 minutes ago. I always remember there was a comedian called Willie Rushton. He was a comedian and author, and he used to voice a couple of the characters. I don't think there was anyone else famous that did the voices, but yeah, it was quite a popular little show for the couple of years it ran in the UK on kids TV, and this game's based on that. And yeah, it's not earth-shattering, it's not going to blow anybody's minds, but it is fun, and definitely I would say if you've not played it before, it's worth a look, for sure. It's fun. Okay, next is DandD, Pilot of the Future, released in 1986 for £9.95. This scored 92% in Crash and 8 out of 10 in CMVG. For those of you who don't know who DandD is, he's a British sci-fi comic book hero. He appeared largely in the Eagle comic book series DandD, Pilot of the Future, hence the name of the game. The game begins with an ominous message from Dan's arch nemesis, the Mekon, revealing his latest dastardly plan. Pretty much a theme throughout the comic book, to be honest with you. Obviously, Dan's always trying to save the world from the Mekon, and as per usual, it's up to Dan to thwart his scheme and save the Earth. The game looks beautiful. It's presented sort of like something out of a comic book. It's like, you know, a bit of an action, shooty platformer game, and there's a little bit of puzzle solving in it as well. It's very good, really good fun to play. If you haven't played it before, I would definitely say give it a go. I remember this is a game that when it came out, I was so excited to get this, and I always remember V as well. I always wanted to get V. They're quite similar in the sense that they're both sci-fi games and both sort of like side-scrolling, shooting aliens and jumping on platforms kind of deal, but this was the far superior game. Definitely a lot of fun. And you'll get quite a few, well, I'll say you get quite a few hours of fun out of this. Depends how slow you play the game. I always find that a lot of Spectrum games, they don't, if you play them nowadays with like pauses and especially with the Spectrum with its rewind function and all the rest of it, you might get this game finished in 30 minutes. But I like to take my time in games like this, so I would say you'll get a few hours of fun out of this one for sure. But yeah, definitely worth a go if you've never played it before. And the final game on the list is Emlyn Hughes International Soccer, released in 1989 for £9.95. Only got 70% in Crash, which is a bit low, but 91% in Sinclair User. Matchday 2 is my favourite football game on the ZX Spectrum, and it's already on the system, so obviously that was chalked off immediately. I was on the fence about whether I was going to add another football game, but I did do a comparison video on the versions of Emlyn Hughes International Soccer, and I played the heck out of the C64 version. It was my favourite football game for the early computers generations. Even like when, I suppose FIFA 95, when that came out on the Sega, it probably overtook it. But up till then, there wasn't anything better, in my opinion, than Emlyn Hughes, and it was just amazing. But I never played the Spectrum version because I had the Commodore 64. I didn't feel like I needed to play the Spectrum version. But obviously, doing the comparison videos, I played it, and I was surprised how absolutely playable and fun it was. So I thought, well, as far as I'm concerned, you can never have too many footy games, so why not? I'll add it on. And yeah, it's a good game. If you've ever played it before, I'm sure you know. If you haven't and you like football games, give it a try. The thing that's great about the Emlyn Hughes games is you can literally kick the ball in every direction. Basically, you can do back heels. You know, that was the thing that with a lot of football games in the 8-bit era, especially, was the fact that you could only kick the ball forwards. You know what I mean, and straight. That was the downside of a lot of early football games. You know, even Matchday's guilty of that. You know, there was a bit more variety about it, but you couldn't really kick it off in diagonal directions and stuff, whereas with Emlyn Hughes you can. It was the first game to really do that, and yeah, I mean, obviously in terms of versions, I would always say the Commodore 64 version is far and away better in terms of colours and stuff like that. But this game does run very well. It's a very nice football game, and you know, if you have got room in your life for more than one, then I'd say add it yourself. If you don't, obviously you've got Matchday 2 on the system, so you don't really need this. But you know, as far as I'm concerned anyway, I thought it was a great football game and definitely worthy of a place on my Spectrum. So there we have it. This is my first 20 games to add to the Spectrum. Let's go over the list. I've done this little picture for you with all the cover art. We have Match Point, Myth, A History in the Making, Set Willie, Formula 1, Tracksuit Manager, Feud, RoboCop, Back to School, Daily Thompsons Decathlon, Death Chase, Jetpack, Nighttime, World Class Leaderboard, Contact Sam Cruz, Batman, Gremlins The Adventure, International Cricket, The Trapdoor, DandD Pilot of the Future, and Emlyn Hughes International Soccer. Now bear in mind, this is just the first 20 games I'm going to add. I'll be adding a lot more, and there'll probably be some more of these videos going up. I still would love to know in the comments below what you will be adding. You can give me 20 if you want. You can just give me odd games, whatever, you know. I'm sure there's lots of people that disagree. I know there's going to be some games on there, probably like Tracksuit Manager and potentially Daily Thompson's Decathlon and International Cricket, you know, particularly the sports games that are not going to get as big a following because, you know, let's face it, I'm a massive sports fan. Not everybody is. So there's going to be more people leaning towards maybe some more of the platform games, maybe some more of the ultimate play the game games, you know, like Sable Wolf and Underworld, that sort of thing. And I get that, absolutely. You know, not everybody loves sport as much as I do, so that's fine. I totally understand. I think I did pretty well though. I mean, I only added about 5 or 6 sports games on here, which for me that's pretty good out of 20. But yeah, I had to omit some absolute classics. But like I said, this isn't set in stone in terms of like I'm only adding 20 games to the Spectrum. I will be adding a lot more than that, and there'll be more videos to come. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please do give it a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. And like I said, send me some comments. Again, be nice. You don't have to be nasty about it. I do get 99% lovely comments, so I appreciate that and thank you for that. You get the odd one, but you know, it's to be expected, isn't it? And yeah, this isn't me telling you what to add to your Spectrum. This is me just saying what I'm going to add. You know, the world is a free place. Everybody can add whatever the heck they want. So, you know, I'm not certainly going to go around telling you you should be doing this and you should be doing that. To each their own. And I would love to hear some of the games that you'll be adding and whether you agree with me on any of the ones that I've picked. You know, whether I've picked a few out of left field that you thought, oh, I don't remember that game. That's great. And, you know, you remember how good it was. I mean, there may be a few there. I don't know. Maybe you're thinking straight away, well, no, they're a load of old rubbish. I know there's going to be at least a few games on that list that people are going to say, yeah, well, that's a definite. Of course it is. Things like Set Willie and stuff. But I get it. We all differ with our tastes, don't we? So, and that's what makes the world a great place. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Take care. Have a fantastic week, and I will see you on the next video. Take care. Bye for now.